Welcome to Streets and Eats, episode 84. This week, we're going to be talking about European Christmas markets, one of my favorite things in the world.
I love them. Ho, ho, ho.
Well, you know, Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and that brings on the Christmas season, and there's nothing that is more magically Christmas than a European Christmas market. Well, maybe a Christmas market anywhere, but I'm used to the European ones.
Welcome to Streets and Eats, the travel and food podcast dedicated to taking our listeners to the sights, sounds, and flavors of fascinating places near and far, both on and off the beaten path. We're Jim and Corinne Vale, and we've been traveling internationally and domestically together for decades, visiting more than 90 countries in all 50 states in the USA. We'll share all of the local knowledge and food expertise we've gathered through years of living as expats in Asia and Europe, as well as traveling with families spanning multiple generations around the world. Join us each week for a new adventure. Okay, Christmas markets, right? The smells that just waft through the market, they're so enticing. They really draw you in. You really want to just like eat everything, drink everything, taste it all.
Well, I always want to eat and drink and taste everything, but sure.
Okay, well, at a Christmas market, there's, of course, the one thing that is iconic, especially in Germany, the drink. I'm sure you know what that is.
Well, there's Glühwein.
Of course, Glühwein or mulled wine. So that's not my trivia question. My trivia question, however, has to do with mulled wine. And the question this week is, what are the origins of mulled wine?
Well, I have no clue, but let me guess. I mean, Christmas markets have been around for hundreds of years. And during that time, they've always sold foodstuffs and meat, especially meat, and things like that. But I never really heard about mulled wine until I heard of England. I don't know if that's just because of my English-speaking background or what, but it seems to me like it's more of an English kind of tradition.
Well, let me just clear that up real quick. Mulled wine and Glühwein are the exact same thing. It's just mulled wine is the English name for Glühwein as a translation. So origins of mulled wine, origins of Glühwein.
Well, I'm going to say it goes back to the Romans because the Romans are the ones who brought grapes to Germany to begin with. And Germany is cold. Okay, so maybe Rome doesn't get that cold in the winter, although I've been there in winter. And yes, it definitely gets cold enough to, if you're wearing a toga, you're going to be cold. I'm sure it was, as soon as you started having wine, you started heating it up when it was cooler out. I don't think there's anything real, I don't know.
Challenging about
that. Is that right?
Yeah. If you know anything about the Romans and you're talking about wine, you're going to attribute it to the Romans because you're right. The Romans brought wine to the world, basically. Now, did they invent it? Of course not. You could, I'm sure, talk to some Georgians that would argue very strongly about Georgians being the people that invented wine. But yeah.
You mean the Republic of Georgia Georgians?
Yes, not the southern U.S. Georgians.
It's such a weird thing. I don't know. I think wine is one of those things that, yes, the Romans, because they conquered the world and they drank a lot of wine, they brought it to the world.
They get a lot of credit for wine.
They get a lot of credit for it, but I'm sure wine is just one of those things that, just happen naturally. Some things I don't really understand, like olives. Who the heck would go through a poisonous fruit and try and figure out a way to eat it? To me, that's just kind of crazy, although I do like olives now. Wine is not that way. You leave a couple of grapes in a bucket and it's going to turn to wine, period.
Well, or vinegar.
Or vinegar or whatever, something.
Had to take a little bit of guts for someone early on.
And overall, I guess, yes, Glühwein is attributed, especially with German Christmas markets. And you can't go anywhere really during the Christmas season and not have the choice of getting it. I mean, we've had it in France and Belgium and Holland, all over the place. But it is not my favorite thing.
Oh, I love
I'm always looking for a different kind of drink. Yes, you love it, but it's not my favorite thing. I'm just not as into it as you are.
So how much Glühwein do you think is drunk every year in Germany?
Just in Germany?
Yeah.
Well, did you know there's over 3,000 Christmas markets in Germany?
I did.
3,000. So if you figure at 3,000, even if there's only 100 people on average.
The average cup of Glühwein is about 0.25 mils.
So that's
You can start doing some math, blah, 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 blah. How many million liters do you think
25
per year?
I'm going to say, gosh, a lot. How many millions of liters?
Yeah.
I'm going to say 3.2 million liters.
Oh, you're way off. 40 million liters per year in
goodness.
Germany alone.
Well, I'm not one of those people because I do like wine. I'm not as fond of hot wine.
90% of the market share of German mulled wine comes from one Weinkeller. It's the Gestacker Weinkeller in Nuremberg. But
that's the biggest.
90%.
That's the biggest Christmas market in Germany as well. And Germany, Nuremberg claims to be the oldest Christmas market, but so does Dresden. And so they've been tussling about that for, just about 800 years. They've been having that fight. Who knows really who started it? Well,
National Geographic gives Dresden the nod for the first Christmas market, like actual Christmas market. They say that earlier markets, yes, there were markets held in December, but they weren't specifically Christmas markets. They were just like an annual market that was put on by the church or the local community or whoever.
Well, what happened in Dresden? And Dresden's one of the ones that we were going to talk about today anyway.
Oh, yeah, you have to.
What happened in Dresden is they have a traditional Christmas cake, the Christmas Stollen. And in 1296, no, that was when, I take that back. At some point in the way back when, years and years and years
1434,
ago,
I'll say.
1434,
that always came up in my research.
Anyway. Oh, yeah, 1434. At any rate, that's when they were awarded the proclamation that they could use butter in their Christmas cake. And so from that point on, the Christmas cake became such a big thing and they sold it at their market. And so maybe that's why they kind of edge out Nuremberg. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Both of them claim it.
Both still big markets today. Definitely good markets to go to.
So was Germany the first country?
Germany is definitely accredited with the first Christmas markets by all accounts that I could find. And they
I
spread
found something
from there.
different. Vienna. Yes, it was
Okay, I should say German communities. Because Germany itself as a country is really pretty young, but there have been German communities all throughout Europe. Yeah. You're right.
But yeah, that's where the 1296 comes from. Vienna is credited with having the very first Christmas market. But it was very much a German tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading in Smithsonian that not only did they start the Christmas markets and other types of things like bringing in the Christmas tree and giving presents and things like that, but they really celebrated everything on December 6th until the Reformation, until their famous Martin Luther changed things for Protestantism. And that changed things to December 25th.
Speaking of Martin Luther, here's another good little bit of trivia for you. Martin Luther is attributed with being the first person to put lights on a Christmas tree after going for a walk in the winter and seeing the stars coming through the pine trees.
Oh, that Martin Luther.
He gets a lot of credit for a lot of stuff. He changed the world.
He changed the world. And we do have an article about
the castle where
he was imprisoned, and he was writing
was he in prison there, or was it just his place where he went to?
He was, what do you call that when you're not allowed in?
Banished.
He was banished.
Okay.
And he spent his time there, his banishment. Yeah. And that was in the Wartburg Castle.
That's right.
Which is in prior East Germany. But now, of course, it's all one Germany. So that doesn't really matter. It's at the very top of this hill. It's a very cool place to go to.
Is that Thuringia?
It's in, Thuringia.
The state?
Yeah.
Which is a great place for Christmas markets too. And in fact, one of the worst I had was at a Christmas market in Thuringia. And it was Thuringian Wurst, of course, which is kind of a coarse, I believe it's pork. I mean, I can't be far off on my guess by saying a pork sausage, but these sausages were barbecued over like a roaring blaze of pine cones.
Yeah.
And they were delicious.
They were delicious. And in fact, I'm not a big Wurst fan either. Glühwein and Wurst, I guess I'm, whatever. But yeah, I remember those Wurst well, and they were delicious. So anyway, I think I got that trivia question.
You definitely got it.
I'm way ahead.
I knew
we should
you
be
would.
we should be keeping facts.
Technically, I don't think you got it because, in fact, the Greek were taking their leftover wine that didn't get drunk the night before and adding spices to it.
That's what I said.
The Greek, not the Romans.
No, what I said was the Romans probably got credit for it because
But it started earlier.
But it started with whoever was drinking wine, and wine's been around longer than the Romans. That's what I said.
So my point is the Greek actually get the specific claim of adding spices to wine, but the Romans were apparently the first ones to heat it up.
Yeah.
And add,
who knows?
They added honey. They didn't add sugar. We add sugar nowadays.
Honey's probably more.
However you slice it, I really like Glühwein, mulled wine.
So as we were talking about kind of the history of Christmas markets and how they came about, they started over 800 years ago. And really, the first markets, as you said, were not technically Christmas markets because back then it wasn't technically something that it wasn't commercialized yet.
Right.
So, what were they interested in? They were interested in eating.
Mm-hmm.
They were interested in getting meat. Meat was a big part of the market. Not as much baked goods for whatever reason. I guess, baked goods basically was for the regular people, bread.
Yeah,
and you had that
bread.
every day anyway. And then, like you said, it basically started all in the German speaking areas. And then it's sort of radiated out from there.
Yeah.
And it's stretched. I mean, we've been to Christmas markets in Casablanca, in Morocco, in Tokyo. Where else? We've been to Christmas markets in some interesting places in the world. And no matter where you go, no matter what your religion, I'm trying to think if I have an exception, but pretty much every time we've ever traveled during the Christmas season, there's Christmassy stuff around, whether you're in Sri Lanka or India or Asia, or the only place I can't think of would be Africa, other than Northern Africa. We've been to Northern Africa.
I think in Africa too.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. It's pretty ubiquitous.
Not necessarily Christmas markets, but definitely Christmas events.
Exactly.
Sure.
It's taken over the world.
But Christmas markets are all around the world too. Like you said, all over the place.
And like the one in Casablanca, I'll never forget that one because we were like, oh my gosh, there's a Christmas market in Casablanca. So we made an effort to go there. I think it had 8 booths.
A little bit smaller than the one in Tokyo.
Yeah, well, Tokyo, Japan does everything big. Yeah, I think there was only 8 stalls, but they were wooden stalls. They looked just like the ones in Germany. They had handcrafted things in them. It was really kind of cute. And I was just, sort of taken aback. I thought that was really neat. But okay, so the question is, we live in Europe, so we're kind of lucky in that we get to experience it without necessarily planning a huge trip. But if you're from the States, or even if you're from England and you want to come all the way over to the continent or whatever, all the way,
on that cheap Ryanair
is it
flight.
really worth it? Is it worth it to come to Germany and maybe some of the other places around Germany where Christmas markets take place? Is it really worth taking a trip to do Christmas markets?
I have to say yes.
I have to say yes too. But what are your reasons?
There's just nothing like wandering through an old medieval town and seeing all the stalls with the handmade wooden ornaments and smokers and stuff. And like I mentioned at the very beginning, just the odors, the smells that travel through as people walk by the stalls where they're roasting the almonds or where the Glühwein is warming up. You just can't beat it. And then a little bit of snow starts falling and there's little fire pits everywhere. I mean, the Germans have a word, gemütlich, and there is nothing more gemütlich than a nice toasty fire pit in a Christmas market in an old medieval village.
You didn't explain. Gemütlich means like a comfortable feeling, kind of a cozy feeling is Gemütlichkeit. I agree with you 100%. So growing up in the United States, you think of Christmas, you've got Santa coming in on the reindeer and you've got Christmas lights and you've got special foods, and it's always like this little tinkle of sounds and music, and it evokes this feeling, just this nostalgia to begin with, thinking about it. And yet, when you grow older, you don't really ever feel that again. It seems like, there's a few minutes of expectation, maybe on Christmas morning, or I don't know. I think you kind of lose that allure, that magic, that charm that Christmas is supposed to, evoke from you. And you know what doesn't help you lose that? Christmas markets.
No, you're right. Well, and in the States and a lot of countries in the world, Christmas is basically a 2 or 3 day event. So
Or 12 days of Christmas.
there are, but not that many people celebrate all 12 days. It's definitely not a U.S. thing. So it's just those couple of days of Christmas, right? But there's a huge lead up to it, like you said, starting from Thanksgiving,
really Thanksgiving,
maybe even Halloween nowadays, where the stuff is in the stores. They've got the decorations out there selling trees. Yeah, that's kind of fun and cool. It's there, you see it, and they're usually like nicely decorated, beautifully lit lots where the trees are and that kind of stuff. But unless you're buying a tree, that doesn't do you much good. And those days leading up to Christmas, when you're doing all of your Christmas shopping and it's hectic and there's people everywhere, in my mind, I look back on those Christmases past not that fondly because of all of that bustle and hustle and, fighting the crowds, trying to find the perfect gift.
The stress of it.
To me, is just more stress. And there's only a couple of days in the end for the payoff. But with the Christmas markets, the markets themselves start around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the last weekend, usually in November.
And you have all that time to just be out there in the season and enjoying the Christmas decorations, the glühwein, all the food. You don't necessarily have to go to a Christmas market and shop. You just go and people watch and look at all the stuff and enjoy the music. There's usually live music and carols. It's an event. And it's every weekend up until Christmas.
Well, they're not all every weekend. So you got to be very careful with that.
Not all everywhere. That's for sure.
They're so far and wide, and there's so many different kinds of Christmas markets. And you've got to really pay attention to the calendar, because the smaller places, especially little villages, they'll have something really nice and cute, but it might be only on the weekends during that time, or it might be only 1 or 2 weekends, or maybe even only 1 weekend. So definitely you'll want to check calendars before you make too many plans. So some of the things that really evoke the Christmas spirit, I think, are, like you mentioned, there's music. There's music every night. There's live music, whether that is the choir from the Catholic Church or whether it is an 80s band that's from the next town over. There's always some kind of music.
A brass band.
A oompa band. There's all kinds of music, and different nights, depending on how long it is, you have different music. But not only that, so many of the Christmas markets we've been to, they have like a creche set, and it might be a huge wooden creche set that's life-sized, or it might be a live creche set. We've seen live ones where they even bring in a live camel and a live sheep and live people dressed up as, the key characters and, putting on a little show. So the creche sets are pretty cool. They have pyramids, and a lot of the
wooden pyramids.
Yeah, a lot of the Christmas markets will have those, and they're life size. They're, like 3 stories tall, and they're this beautiful wooden structure that has kind of like a cuckoo clock mechanism where it has the different whatever it is inside it, whether they're deer or St. Nicholas or nutcrackers or whatever. They're spinning and there's candles on them, and it's really nice.
A little bit about the Christmas pyramids in Germany, in case people don't know about them. They are a wooden structure, like you said, usually 1, 2, 3 tiers tall, maybe even taller. And they've got spots for candles around the base. And when the candles are lit, there's a propeller at the top that catches the heat as it's rising and spins.
Yeah, those are ones that you can buy for your house.
Right.
They sell them all through the season.
And in the Christmas markets, it's the same idea, but of course it's not candles that are spinning it, and they're life size. So that's really cool.
So what else do they have?
Oh, they have all kinds of stuff. In Weiden, where we had lived for a little while, in the old Rathaus right in the middle of
that's what I was going to talk about. Yeah.
They had taken the windows, and it's an old medieval building that has wooden shuttered windows all around it. And in the Christmas market times, they decorate those windows, and then they'll open one each day, and they turn it into an advent calendar, like a really large advent calendar, which is really cool. And there'll be a different Christmas scene behind each window.
And a lot of times they have a particular time at night, usually like say 5 o'clock at night. And that's when they open the window and they play some music, or they do the bells of the church and invite. And like you said, the bells were this big long wall of bells with different sounds. And it was just stunningly beautiful. And it just, everything about the Christmas market evokes that feeling of nostalgia and that feeling of magic.
And
Chris
fun.
Kindle, Santa Claus or Saint Nick definitely makes his rounds. And sometimes you'll even, depending on where you are, they have different characters that represent Christmas. Like in the Netherlands, they have Saint Nicholas and Zwarte Piet.
Yeah.
And then, they just have different people and different things that are part of their tradition. So it's always nice to go to the different ones and find those out.
And there's always rides. Well, not always, but in the big ones, there's rides and Ferris wheels and things like that. Some of them even have skating rinks where you can ice skate.
A lot of them, yeah.
It's pretty common. One of the things I really enjoy is joining a night watchman tour. A lot of times during the Christmas markets, they'll have night watchman tours where you can follow the night watchman as he makes his rounds and he'll tell you about the city. That's always fun.
One of the characters in Bavaria and German speaking parts of Austria, well, all of Austria is German speaking, but in Austria, in the Alps basically, is Krampus. And they have Krampus shows, which are phenomenal. They're basically these monsters dressed up in furs that do a firelight show, and they put it on. They have a calendar as well, and they put it on, and you just go there. And it lasts a good, half hour, 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And meantime, they're doing all kinds of things with fire, and it's just the spectacular. And then they'll also walk through the market, and they might, scare the kids or whatever, which, okay, that sounds bad, but the kids grow up with it. So they're not really scared.
Right.
They just know that there are people dressed up. It's kind of like Halloween in that particular.
Yeah. It's part of the Christmas
of it.
tradition. So it's like, when's Krampus coming?
I guess that's what I'm trying to say is everything about a Christmas market is designed to have you get that feeling, that Christmas feeling.
Yes.
And so whether it's rainy and you're just all bundled up in your hats and mittens and, even carrying an umbrella, I mean, you've got that coolness. You can see your breath. You're drinking hot cocoa or egg punch or a how do you say it?
Feuerzangenbowle.
Which is your favorite.
Yes.
Again, not something I drink, but what is it?
It's more of a fortified type of glühwein. It's a punch with rum, and the rum is soaked onto a sugar cone, and then they light the sugar cone because it's got rum on it, so it's flammable, right? And it's lit, and it's dripping into the punch, and it just adds like a caramelized sweet rum flavor. It's really delicious. I do like that one quite a bit.
Yes, he does.
I'll go for a glühwein any day, no problem. But if I see a Feuerzangenbowle, yeah, I'm there. I'll wait in that line.
I have to admit, though, it is enticing to have a hot drink. And so there's lots of different hot drinks that are available. And they're coming up with new ones all the time. They're just delicious. And some of the other things that you can eat there are everything from crepes to dump noodle, which are like yeast dumplings and vanilla sauce, to mushrooms and cream sauce, to pork sandwiches and pork sausages.
Of course, doner, foot-long sausages, langosh bread, fried bread with different fillings in it, sweet or savory.
Tons of
Pretzels.
Lebkuchen and cookies and gingerbread and pretzels and like you said, sugared nuts that are heated up.
Roasted nuts.
They almost always have chestnuts roasting on an open fire somewhere through the market. There's just so much.
Chocolate-covered fruits.
Oh, and a big thing in Germany is chocolate tools.
Chocolate formed into all kinds of shapes, like tools. That was so bizarre when I first saw those.
Yeah, but they're
Looks
everywhere.
like a chocolate wrench.
It's a thing.
I guess, you got to come up with things to buy for men.
Maybe that's how it started. Yeah, it's a manly thing. You spoke about going to the department stores where you have to stand in line and maybe you're fighting for, back in our days, this is really showing the age, like things like Cabbage Patch Kids or Tamagotchis, or what are some of the other ones that people fight over? What is a newer thing?
Oh, the newer things. Who knows? We're so far out of that loop.
Yeah,
I couldn't even think about it.
It's not something we have to worry about as much anymore.
I mean, everybody knows the whole idea of the one big thing that you have to get for Christmas for your kid.
Yeah, and maybe you still have to do that. But when you go to a Christmas market, you're not really there for those kinds of presents They do have hand knitted items, and they have ornaments, and they have foodstuffs, and they have
wooden toys.
Right. And they have smokers, and they just have, I mean, it's gotten to the point where there are just goods like toys and things like that too. And I mean, there is a space for that. And I think that that's important because that's where a lot of people do their Christmas shopping. But it's just, I don't know, it's just not the same.
No.
And you rarely have really long lines. You do some places.
There
and
are
especially,
some very crowded
yeah.
Christmas markets for sure.
I mean, if you're in Nuremberg, you got to have a prune person.
Yeah, that's true.
They somehow, somewhere back in the day, they started making little statuettes made out of prunes. And now you can, I mean, you rock on up to a prune stand and they've got prunes that are humans carrying milking cows, chimney sweeps. I don't even know.
Probably have them
everything. You
using
name it.
their iPhone and sitting in a computer.
Exactly. They have it all.
They have sculpted those into everything imaginable.
Yeah. So we have lived in Germany where there's lots of Christmas markets for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, we've also traveled around other parts of Europe and visited some. And so some of our favorite Christmas markets around Europe are...
Well, I really like Salzburg in Austria. That's one of my favorite. I really like Salzburg to begin with.
I was going to say, just as a general rule.
You throw a Christmas market in the old town right underneath the fortress up on the cliff and in between the cathedral and the church, and just the whole walking area is so festive. I love that one. That's a really good one.
Also, the ones that I think are really popular in Belgium are like Brussels and Bruges, and we've been to both of those.
Okay, Bruges is really a pretty one.
Yeah.
Because of all the water, and so all the Christmas lights are just constantly reflecting and twinkling off the water. That is a gorgeous one.
But both of them have these amazing grand plazas too, where the actual Christmas market takes place. And I don't think I've been to a Christmas market yet in Belgium that doesn't have an ice rink. Like that's sort of like common. One of their obligatory parts is to have an ice rink.
Yeah, that's true. You know, there's a couple of different ways that Christmas markets are set up, different venues, if you want to say that. Like in Brussels and Bruges, they're in a Grand Platz, or in a huge open square in the center of town, maybe by the Rathaus or the Burgermeister's house, whatever you call that.
It's called the Mayor's House.
The Mayor's House.
The city building.
The Hotel de Ville.
Hotel de Ville.
And that's a really common way of doing it in Belgium and also in France. And you see that in some German cities too. But there's also the ones that are even in large cities, but mostly in the smaller ones, where all of the stalls and everything are just set up in the winding streets around the old town. And then there are some that are in like very specific venues, like in a mine or in a gorge somewhere or in a castle courtyard. So there's a lot of different types like that. Amsterdam, Valkenburg.
Valkenburg is a really cool one. The girls and I went there when we lived in the Netherlands. Basically, it's a set of caves. And inside the caves, they set up the Christmas market. So you're indoors. Well, I mean, it's not that it's warm because it's a cave.
It's a cave.
But you still get that feeling. But it is different and it's pretty cool. Some of the bigger places that we've been to, like Budapest and Prague, Wrocław in Poland, all of those are fantastic. I remember the Prague one. One of the big things they had there was they had these big, huge hams on a spit. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, that ham was so delicious.
And it's on a spit rotating as it heats up, and it's dripping into a huge tray of sauerkraut.
So good.
You get that ham and the sauerkraut. Oh my gosh.
And then in Wrocław is just one of our favorite cities in Europe anyway. And it's just a beautiful downtown area, old city downtown kind of area. And they have a Christmas market there that is just gorgeous.
And then in the Alsace, that's where you're going to find those little villages where they're like scenes out of, Disney's Beauty and the Beast type village. And the market is just spread throughout the little winding streets. And that is really beautiful.
But again, so the big ones typically are going to go at least from the last weekend in November until Christmas.
Yeah.
Some nowadays will even go longer. They'll go like the week after Christmas because they know people are still on vacation then. And that's kind of nice because you have less people, not necessarily less people visiting it, because a lot of the people who live there are there just to have their hot wine and stand around talking and drinking beer or whatever.
Friends.
Meeting up with friends. But you don't have that whole Christmas, like I have to buy presents thing necessarily.
Right. It's more of a fest type thing.
Yeah. So the larger ones are typically going to be open throughout the time, but small ones, no matter where you are, no matter which country you're in, you really want to check the calendar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the ones there. One that we're going this winter that we have not been to before, but I'm just so pumped to go, is in Montreux, Switzerland. I don't think I've ever been to a Christmas market in Switzerland. So this is a first.
I don't think we have.
But we've done lots of wintry stuff in Switzerland. And of course, I mean, you can just imagine alpine villages. It's gorgeous. But anyway, the one in Montreux, the reason I'm excited is threefold. One reason is because during the Christmas market every day, Santa actually flies through the air in a reindeer sleigh. How cool is that? That's cool. Secondly, it's the beginning of a railroad trip that you take up a mountain and then you go to Santa's village and you meet Santa there and all his elves and stuff.
At the top of the mountain.
At the top of the mountain.
Of a Swiss Alp.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then, of course, I mean, you could do this all year long, but come on, cold, wintry time. In this Christmas market, I was looking at the food options, and there must have been at least 30 ways to eat fondue. I mean, come on.
Ways to eat hot cheese.
Hot cheese on a cold night. It's so my jam. I can't wait. Like I said, we've been really to Christmas markets all over the world. And I don't know, I still think that Germany really has some of the best ones. And one of our favorites we mentioned earlier was Dresden, where they have the whole story about getting the Pope to give them rights to use butter in their Christmas cake 600 years ago. And so now it's still something that's so important to them that they make like this gigantic Christmas stollen every year and parade it through the city. And we were there, and that thing is huge. It weighs like over 500 pounds.
And it's a whole production. Just the whole day is a production about this stollen and, bringing back the traditions of the Stollen and the old medieval times. And it's really cool. That one you definitely need to do some planning for.
Yeah. And they parade it through the town, but the parade is a special parade too. So they have everything that goes into the Stollen. So they have farmers who've raised the wheat, and they have bakers, and they have, I don't know, I mean, everything that you could possibly imagine that has anything to do with the ingredients of the Stollen. Pretty darn cool. And then, of course, the Christmas market itself is pretty sprawling and beautiful. So some of the other ones I like are, I mean, you can go to a great one in Frankfurt. Berlin has a bunch of cool ones that are just, I mean, Berlin is just such a beautiful place anyway. If you go along the Rhine, all those little Rhine towns have little
at least
Christmas
a couple of
markets,
stalls, and
they're going to have good wine while they're there. And one of my favorites is Trier. Trier is the oldest city in Germany, and Jim and I, when we first met, lived only about 15 minutes from Trier? 20 minutes?
Probably where we went to our first Christmas market together.
Yeah, probably our very, very first one was in Trier. So it really holds a special place in my heart, and I just think it's one of the most beautiful ones. But let's face it, if you're talking Christmas markets in Germany, you probably want to go to Bavaria.
Oh yeah, I think it's got the biggest concentration of Christmas markets in all of Germany, and there are around 3,000 Christmas markets in Germany. So if you're in Bavaria, you've got a pretty good chance that you are nearby to a Christmas market.
We have come up with a 1-week itinerary where you can fly in and out of Munich, and then you can train or rent a car and drive between the 5 major places that you would go in Germany that we think you should go in Germany for Christmas markets. There are plenty more. And like Jim said, there are plenty more. But these 5 places are ones that are open the whole season, so you don't have to worry about whether or not they'd be open. And secondly, they're big cities, so there's always there's more to do than just the Christmas market, which I think is important. There's plenty of hotels, and the Christmas markets are just stunning.
And when we say big cities, there are big cities in Germany or bigger cities in Germany with a couple of smaller ones. And at the same time, they're not like metropolises or anything like that. So they still have that kind of close-in, comfy feeling in the Christmas markets themselves. So that's really cool. So you fly in and out of Munich, like you said, and then head to Nuremberg. Nuremberg is, I think, a lot of people's mind, Nuremberg is the German Christmas market.
And thousands upon thousands of people go each year. It's where the prune people are. They have a specific Christmas market just for kids. As well as the regular Christmas market. But it's it's so both. Yeah, it's so wonderful.
You have to go to a Nuremberg Christmas market once in your life, at least. And from there, you head to Würzburg, which is a little bit different. It's further north. It's still Bavaria.
It's kind of part of Franconia, which is a certain part of
a specific part of
northern Bavaria.
It has its own feel. It's got its own specific wine growing region.
Mm-hmm. The Franconian wines are there. Make sure you try them.
Yeah. And the food's a little bit different.
Delicious.
Definitely an important one too. It's got a castle up on the hill. From there, Bamberg is a beautiful, that's not a big city. That's a small
city. A smaller city, but gosh, I have to say it's one of my favorite cities in all of Germany.
It is
the
beautiful.
Downtown area is stunningly beautiful with its half-timbered houses. The Rathaus or City Hall is in the middle of a river.
Yes.
It's an island in the middle of a river. It's just so darn cool. It's a World Heritage Site city, and we've been there all kinds of times of year. And of course, the Christmas market time
the best time.
It's just magical.
And then heading back south to Regensburg. Regensburg, again, is one of those smaller cities in Bavaria that I think is often overlooked, but it's got such a rich history and so well preserved. And that Christmas market is just one of the best as well.
And all of these are so easy to get to by train. And that's one of the reasons we made the itinerary that way. Because, you go to a Christmas market, you want to have the Glühwein. You want to have the, how do you say it again?
Feuerzangenbowle.
I can't say that. Anyway, you want to imbibe. So you don't want to be driving. And they also have plenty of downtown hotels and stuff that are really nice too. Plus lots to do in the city, like I said.
Yeah. So if you do rent a car, you definitely want to have a hotel that is near the Christmas market so you can park and walk and enjoy yourself. And the other good thing about having a car is there's plenty of Christmas markets along this route that are well worth a visit. Rothenburg's not too far from Nuremberg and Würzburg.
It's about 3 hours.
Well, but it's in between.
Yeah.
So you could definitely make that a side trip. And if we have a car, you have that option.
Well, you can get there by train too.
Yeah,
you can get anywhere by train.
It adds more time. But
it definitely adds more time. The good thing about the trains are they're so comfy. So it's well worth it to take the train, I think, in a lot of ways. And in Bavaria, they have a ticket that makes it pretty cheap to get from one place to the other.
Get the Bavaria Pass. It's good for 5 people. So a small family can use it all on one pass.
For like 36 euros or something. Yeah. That's pretty
It's good for all the transportation regional trains within Bavaria.
And by the way, it's going to be a lot cheaper than gas.
Oh, yes. So that's a great way to go.
That's one thing that I would suggest. If you're looking for an itinerary, I would head to Bavaria, and that would be such a great first foray into the land of Christmas markets. But really, 3,000 in Germany, plus all the ones in the surrounding countries. I mean, you could spend your entire vacation budget every year and just do Christmas market after Christmas market, Christmas market.
Oh, there's so many ways to do it. There's river cruises that are specifically for Christmas markets. So if you're into cruising, that's a great way to do it too. Yeah. But like you said, no matter how you do it, it's definitely worth it to plan out a good week, 2-week vacation, get away from the grind of work, come to Germany, come to Europe, do some amazing Christmas markets, and just really enjoy the season.
Merry Christmas.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love. Hit the like button and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.